start it? It's 3 o'clock.
Good afternoon to all. We move on to the next technical session. Today we have Dr. T.G. Gopakumar with us. He's working as Associate Professor, the Department of Chemistry, Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur. He had more than 55 publications in reputed journals. His area of specialization include molecular functional materials, scanning tunneling microscopy, atomic force microscopy, and surface science, etc. On behalf of EFCS 2020 and every participants, I would like to welcome Gopakumar sir to deliver the talk on molecular material for future electronic devices. Over to you, sir. Sir, please.
Yeah, hello. So I hope you can see my slides properly.
We can see your slides, full screen as well. We can hear you as well. Yeah.
Thank you, wonderful. So let me first thank Professor Pradeep for inviting me to this wonderful program, and also thank you for putting this nice program together. I think it is quite a set of nice speakers. And also I would like to thank the Farouk College Department of Chemistry for giving me an opportunity to present what we do in the Department of Chemistry at IIT Kanpur. So I would be talking to you in the next 45 minutes nearly about molecular materials. As a chemist and as a physical chemist, we find fascination towards molecules, and it is also considered to be one of the future candidate or future materials for electronic applications. So there will be a bit of electronic application prospect would be coming in my talk, and I hopefully try to convince you through the lecture that this is quite a promising material to go with. So just I will first introduce to you like why molecule, and particularly I want to talk about like the perspective of electronics where the molecule is coming in. And then I will also spend a few minutes on just explaining to you the major technique that we use for analyzing these molecular materials. That is probe microscopy in general. And then I would go directly to the two major topics that I would like to share with you, which is molecular switches on surfaces and two-dimensional molecular materials. So let me just start with the perspective of molecule. So when you consider molecules, so the first and most important thing coming to the practical application is that its size. So molecules are of course very small, and then the plenty of choice that is available, and also its tunability in terms of the electronic property, the magnetic property, and also the structural property. If you want to eventually build something out of this material, of course, one need to have a higher tunability, and molecules and the synthetic methodologies itself allow us to do that very in a very fine manner. And then comes the most important thing, because at the end of the day, like when you have the molecules, now we want to put the molecules together and build a device or build an electronic structure itself. So for that, the molecule allows something called self-organization. So we will be basically using something known as a self-organization property of the molecule itself in order to come up with the structure or pattern that eventually act as the functional material for the electronic device. And when it comes to molecule particularly, this is quite an important aspect of molecule, that they do self-assemble, and by doing a careful engineering of the functional groups and the symmetry of the molecule, you can in fact tune the self-organization very controllable way. And now if you look into the library of molecule, what is something interesting, you find that all the electronic components that you would require to eventually build an electronics, like a diode, switches, wires, memories, are all available in the library of molecules. So that's an interesting aspect. Of course, the challenge right now when you think about molecular electronics is of course how to put these things together. That's of course a challenging task at the moment, but around the globe people are actually working on putting molecular building blocks together and to hopefully bring up an electronics based on that. Well, there are already certain examples, practical example based on molecular thin film, like solar cells or electronics. You can already see the organic light emitting diode based TVs are present. Then something very futuristic is actually something known as single molecular memory. When you talk about a molecule, the size of the molecule is extremely small, which is in the order of half a nanometer or to 1 nanometer. And if you can imagine changing the electronic property or changing the spin of the molecule itself, then you can, for example, think about a single molecule as an information bit. Here in this example, what you are seeing is a single molecule which is externally triggered in a very controlled way at a single molecular level and switching them to a high spin state. So ideally, what you have here is now an array of information bits which can actually be controlled between a high spin state and a low spin state. So this is nothing but a single molecular memory, for example. So these are actually a bit more futuristic prospect about the, hello? Yeah, so this is about a little bit of futuristic prospect about the molecular electronic itself. Now, there are also interesting aspect in the fundamental level that one can also think about using the complexity of molecules and also all the possible interactions that are present in the molecule. One can also build up complex structures, animate biosystems, and so on, which also has quite a lot of fundamental aspects when it comes to the molecule itself, because the life itself is built up by molecules, ideally. Now, let me just spend a few minutes on the technique, because I will be showing you a lot of images, and I just wanted to give you a small idea about what is this probe microscopy in a very, very simple way. So I would be using something known as a probe or a tip, which is actually an atomically sharp tip, which is capable of moving in the X, Y, and Z direction. With that, I can basically control the scanning, and this atomically sharp tip will be moving on top of the sample at which I am actually just having my molecules, for example. Now, if you look at the atomic level picture, so you have an atomically sharp tip and the surface, and when the apex atom of the surface interact with the surface atom, there are possible interactions that you can actually make use of it. And in tunneling microscopy, or generally known as scanning tunneling microscopy, you would measure something known as a tunneling current that is passing between the tip and the sample. Or in an atomic force microscope, you would be measuring something known as an atomic forces that is actually acting between the apex atom of the tip and the surface atom. So depending on what you basically measure, you can actually convert these microscopes into two different types. And of course, the structure is also slightly different. Now, let me just tell you a tiny bit of details about the scanning tunneling microscopy. So what you have here is an atomic lattice, a surface of a crystalline material, and then I have an odd atom sticking on that. Now, if I bring the atomically sharp tip close to the surface, then and apply a bias between the tip and the sample, so then there will be a tunneling current. But the interesting aspect about the tunneling current is that the tunneling current is strongly distance dependent, where Z is basically the distance between the tip and the sample, and it is exponentially dependent on the distance, which is meaning that whenever I move the tip along the surface, depending on where I am on top of the surface, there is a strong change in the tunneling current. For example, if I would make a scan across the atomic lattice, when I am on top of an atom, then I have the distance to be like smaller, and as soon as I basically just come in between two atoms, the distance automatically, the average distance between the tip and the surface increases, which is meaning that the current drops drastically. So therefore, you can eventually resolve the atomic structure on the surface. And that's actually the key element of all the probe microscope in general, and particularly here this example is the force microscope. And now you can scan across the entire surface using an XY raster scan, and then you can eventually generate enormous line scans, and when you put them together, you can ideally create the surface with atomic resolution. And that is the important aspect here, that using scanning tunneling microscopy, you can reach actually the atomic resolution. And here you can see these are the surface atoms, and this is actually the add atom that you have actually put on the surface. So ideally, you can get the atomic resolution. Of course, the atomic resolution, there are other conditions as well. At low temperature, it works effectively much better. At room temperature, this is not that great because of the thermal noise. And I will be showing to you a scanning tunneling microscopy performed at room temperature, because our systems are also prepared at room temperature. Then when it comes to the force microscopy, the only difference is that the tip that we are talking about is basically just sticking on a cantilever. And the cantilever is resonating at a resonant frequency. And depending on the cantilever's interaction, the tip's interaction with the surface, and also the adsorbate or the material that you deposit on the surface, the resonant frequency or the amplitude of the oscillation or the phase of the oscillation basically changes. And one can basically measure these quantities, the difference in frequency or the difference in amplitude or the difference in phase with respect to the resonant frequency. Then one can ideally create the surface structure as an image. So these are basically pseudo images, in fact. So here I have a very quick example to show you. What you're seeing here on the left side is an AFM topograph, where the light bright area, which is marked by the red and also with the yellow line, is nothing but an ultra thin film, a monolayer of molecule. And this area, which is in between, is actually nothing but the graphite. The interesting thing is that the yellow marked region and the red region are two different types of assembly of molecules. Of course, in the contrast, you cannot really distinguish. In the topographic contrast, you cannot distinguish them very nicely. But as you see, when you take the phase contrast, but here please note that the phase contrast is actually corresponding to the phase of the oscillation of the cantilever. And there you clearly see that you can distinctly differentiate one type of phase from the other type of phase. So you can also use this kind of a phase contrast in getting the images much more clearly. So of course, AFM has actually this kind of an added advantage in looking at the images at a larger scale, and also to see what type of assembly is actually going on at the interface. So this is what I will be showing you in most of my talk. You will be seeing a lot of AFM images and STM images, and that's the reason why I just flashed this little bit of the idea about how they operate. Now, when it comes to the first part of my talk, so I will be talking to you about molecular switches. So let me also just first tell you what is a molecular switch. Does it really resemble a real electrical switch? Yes, indeed. The example that I'm going to talk to you is about a famous molecule, which is azobenzene. Yeah, that you have an azo group and two phenyl group, and this is actually an azobenzene molecule. And it has actually two different types of conformers, like a transform and a cis form. Now, the interesting thing about this molecule, you can in fact switch or convert this molecule from transform to cis form by externally using photons, for example. But now, when you have this molecule deposited on the surface, you can also convert this molecule from a transform to cis form using photon, or if you have it like investigated under a scanning tunneling microscopy, you can even excite or change these molecules from one form to another form using electrons, yeah, or using the electrical field that you apply between the tip and the sample. But now the most striking and important point is that whenever the molecule change their form from one form to another form, there is a strong electronic structure change is associated with that. That means, in a very simple way, the HOMO-LUMO gap of the different forms are indeed different. So the HOMO-LUMO gap of trans is smaller and that of the cis is actually larger, which is meaning that if you would like to use this molecule as a switch, then you would say that you have a high conducting state and a low conducting state depending on the change in the electronic structure. And that is actually the scope that people are working with this kind of molecule. There are many possible molecules that you can think about, and we are currently working with isobenzene based switches. And what we want to achieve is basically the reversible switching of molecules on surface at ambient conditions. So this is basically the goal. Now, let me just show you how we start with this. So to do this exercise, you need to first prepare a thin film of the molecule. So we use something known as a very simple drop casting method. So you prepare the solution of the molecule at a very low concentration in the order of -5 or -6 molar. And then you simply drop cast the molecules on a graphite surface. So what you're seeing in this AFM image is the ultra thin film. That means a sub-monolayer coverage of molecules on surface, where all these bright regions, which are looking like elongated long pieces, and nothing but a monolayer of molecules adsorbed or assembled on the graphite surface. Now, interesting thing is, of course, they would also just, since graphite, the one we are using is actually the basal plane of graphite, which is a 6-fold symmetric surface. The molecule also have some kind of a relation with respect to the surface, and they actually do the self-assembly. And therefore, you would find that the islands, or which I'm calling it as the small stripes, which I'm calling as islands, they are oriented with respect to each other, and all this angle is basically around 120 degrees, which is meaning that the islands are in fact just rotated with respect to the graphite lattice. Now that's good. So we can clearly make nice and uniform film of that. And if you increase the coverage, you can clearly cover the entire surface with smooth, nice, uniform film. Well, now we want to go to the molecular level, because what I want to achieve is basically the switching of a single molecule. So let's do that. So before that, let me just show you a high resolution image that is taken from a small section of this. You can see the scale is changing. And what you see is kind of a bright and less bright lines that is passing next to each other. Then if you inspect the line spacing, this is actually corresponding to the distance of a dimer of a molecule. So the molecule particularly that we are depositing is actually an isobenzene that is having a COOH functional group, and the COOH functional group is deliberately kept because the COOH functional group is particularly known for strong hydrogen bonding interaction, because this hydrogen bonding we find is an extremely important thing to get stable switching at room temperature. You will see that in a minute. Now, this is a molecule, and what we find that the B is actually corresponding to a dimer distance, which already gives me an indication that molecules are pairing up on the surface, and then they are basically assembling. Now, let us look at a little bit more in detail. That is the reason why we use scanning tunneling microscopy and atomic force microscopy. So what you are seeing here is a scanning tunneling microscopy image, a topograph, it's generally known as, which is taken at room temperature. So that is the reason why the image quality is not that great. But by doing a little bit of mathematical averaging, you can get nicely how the molecules are arranged. Now in the high resolution data, you see that the molecules are actually just arranging in a linear fashion, where two molecules are coming together and forming a dimer. And the dimer is actually just built up between the COH group, which is also well known because that COH group is something that I have already told you. We deliberately put that group because this is actually to maintain the hydrogen bonding. And once you have the hydrogen bonding, they basically assemble in this fashion and form this nice well-ordered pattern on the surface. Now, once you have the well-ordered pattern on the surface, we can now start to do the switching. And we want to do the switching using electrons and holes. And how we do that, we would basically place our STM tip on top of a dimer, yeah, because it is an atomically sharp tip. So we know the position after scanning the image. We can basically look at the sample and we can place the tip on top of a molecule, and then we can switch on the voltage. Yeah, so by changing the voltage, you can basically just do the switching. So how do we do that? And that's exactly what I would like to explain to you. So when we do that by just ramping the voltage applied between the tip and the sample, from a negative bias to a positive bias, or from positive bias to negative bias. Now, the interesting thing, when you look at this data here, it is looking extremely messy. I'll try to make you convinced that this is something useful than just messy. At the end of the day, you see that the signal that you're getting is looking more or less scattered, so having enormous step-like signals inside. So in order to understand this, I thought it is better to also have a look and understand what is the IV characteristic itself is telling you, because what I'm doing is basically measuring the current, the tunneling current, as a function of voltage across a zero. So that's what I'm doing. So let us try to quickly understand what is this really meaning, or what is what is going on below this. So to understand that, what I'm doing is I have a metallic tip and I have a metallic surface. I mean, in this case, it is graphite. Now, when I'm applying no bias, that means if there is no bias applied between the tip and the sample, then the Fermi energy of both the sample and the tip will be aligned. And this is actually the valence band, and this represents the conduction band. And the vacuum level is actually represented because you have something called a work function, and that work function is basically something coming up here. And due to this, you create eventually a tunneling barrier. So that means now the electrons are here, which need to, in order to cross this, you need extra energy. So therefore, the electrons ideally tunnel through this barrier. That's what actually happens, which is a truly quantum mechanical phenomenon. Now, what I'm doing is I am basically applying a positive bias or a negative bias. So now let us, before that, let me just put a molecule on top of the surface. So this is my substrate. And when I put molecule on top of it, I have basically these discrete energy levels like the HOMO, LUMO, LUMO plus 1, and so on of the molecule. And they will also align with respect to the Fermi energy. So this is now the electronic structure of the molecule surface tip interface. Now I apply the bias. So when I apply a positive bias, what happens is actually the Fermi energy of the tip and the Fermi energy of the sample would align in this fashion, so that the electrons from the tip would tunnel into the LUMOs of the molecule. Yeah, or the unfilled molecular orbitals of the of my switch. Now, if I would apply a negative bias, so you ideally shift the Fermi energy high with respect to that of the tip, and then electrons are basically just tunneling to the empty levels of the tip. But now you can see that they are actually passing through the molecular filled molecular orbital of the molecule. Now you can see by varying or by spanning the voltage between positive and negative, ideally what I'm doing is I'm injecting electrons momentarily into the molecule, or I am basically taking electrons out, or that means I'm injecting holes into the molecule momentarily. Yeah, and then once the circuit is completed, then the molecule again becomes neutral. But during the process, you can see I am momentarily injecting electrons and actually taking electrons out of the molecule. Now, if you plot this, the scan of the voltage as a function of current, you would immediately find that whenever the voltage is actually matching with the energy difference of the LUMO and HOMO with respect to the Fermi energy, you have a small step that is actually the extra current that is passing through the molecular orbital. Or if you take the first derivative of that, you clearly see that the peak represents the position of the HOMO and the LUMO of the molecule. Yeah. So therefore, tunneling spectroscopy is an important tool people use in understanding single molecule electronic structure. There is no other technique existing with that you can in fact understand this, because here you go on top of a single molecule, place your tip and just run the voltage from minus to positive and measure the IV characteristics, and that's what is this. Now you can also basically just image the molecules at different bias voltage, and then that also corresponding to the electron density that is localized at the molecule, and that will also be like quite dependent on which image, which orbital, which molecular orbital you are imaging. Yeah. At positive bias, you would be orbiting, you would be looking at the HOMO of the molecule, and at negative voltage, you will be looking at the LUMO of the molecule. And that is the reason why you see in this particular case, this is actually a self-assembly of a phthalocyanine molecule on graphite. And you can see these bright spots are nothing but the molecule. And this is again the molecule, but you can see clearly, depending on the voltage, the contrast of the molecule changes. That's due to the fact that you are actually looking at the different molecular orbital at different images. So that's something very spectacular you can do with the tunneling spectroscopy. So this is something known as tunneling spectroscopy. Now you see the interesting thing, or the expected tunneling spectroscopy, if you would run on the molecule, is to be a smooth curve that is going with respect to zero. So there will be an increase in the current, there will be a decrease in the current, or the sign of the current changes, but more or less the tunneling spectrum should look like a smooth curve. But that's not what you observe when we do it on the switching molecule, on the azobenzene molecule. So that's quite striking. So you again have the zero that represent basically the Fermi level. And now when you go on the positive bias, I am basically injecting electrons into the LUMO of the molecule. And when you go on the negative side, I'm basically extracting electrons, or I'm injecting holes into the molecule. Now you see the spectrum looks quite different than what you have actually just seen before. So what is happening here is, while you are injecting, or while you are ramping the voltage, you are injecting electron into the molecule, and molecule is basically switching its state while we are doing this experiment. That means when I ramp the voltage, ideally the molecule is being switched between two states. It is also clear now when you look at these steps up and down carefully, what you find is that the step is actually just going up and then coming down to the same position. So it is always looking like some kind of a telegraphic noise. Yeah, that is due to the fact that the molecule is basically switching from the trans state, the cis state, and coming back from cis state to the trans state. That is the reason why they are looking like a telegraphic noise. But these telegraphic noise are nothing but the switching of the molecule itself. So that's something very interesting. We can now clearly switch the molecule in a reversible manner. This is quite important. And now what I'm going to do is to understand the switching process, and also to understand this phenomena on a few different type of azobenzene molecule. Well, the first and the most important thing that what we have done is that, since I've already told you that the current that you're observing in the tunneling spectra should also be dependent on the density of state, or the molecular electronic state itself. That means if you would basically just take a statistics of all the switching events that you observe, that's what is done here. You can see now the bar diagram basically represent the number of switching events that are happening when you increase the voltage. Well, when you increase the voltage, of course, you clearly know that the number of electrons that you inject into the system is large, or the number of holes that you inject into the system is large. Therefore, I would expect a quick increase in the number of events. That's clear. But now what you see, interesting thing is that the switching events start not really at zero. It starts after a small offset, somewhere around 0.5 here in this case, and also somewhere around 0.5. That means about 0.5 on the positive side and 0.5 on the negative side, the switching really starts. So that shows that there is a clear barrier, so a voltage barrier for the electrons to first induce the switching. Well, as expected, as you already told, as I have already showed you in the previous slide, that since you have to inject electrons into the LUMO of the molecule, you do not expect it to happen around the zero voltage. Of course, the voltage that you apply should actually match with the energy of the LUMO. So that is why it is expected that there has to be a kind of barrier, or a potential barrier, to start the switching event. But now the interesting thing is that the entire barrier, if you look, so that means the difference between these two offsets should basically give me the HOMO-LUMO gap of the molecule. So that is about 0.9 from our, by doing several experiments, we have the average value. So that is about 0.9 electron volt. Now, if you look at the single molecule calculation and the barrier or the so-called HOMO-LUMO gap of this molecule, it turns out to be about 3.51 electron volt. So there is a huge, massive difference between the experimental observation and what you would theoretically observe. So that was strange for us to understand. But now then we thought, well, you are indeed injecting electron to the molecule and you are indeed injecting Hall to the molecule. What if the molecules are actually momentarily in a positive or negative state or negative charge state while they are actually switching? So it turns out to be that if you now do the same calculation with one positive charge or two positive charge, now currently our theoreticians are also calculating all this process on surface so that we have a clear understanding of that. It turns out to be that the band gap is basically shrinking if you keep the molecule charged, so which is also obviously expected. So that means the switching itself is actually happening not in the neutral state of the molecule. So the molecule is basically getting charged while the molecule is switching. Yeah, so you will also see another proof for that. I will show you in a couple of minutes. Well, to go along with this, we have also now tried to understand the process a little bit further by looking at a slightly different molecule. This is again a type of azobenzene molecule. But what we have done is actually we have actually attached a bulkier functional group on one side by substituting the phenyl group. So the rest of the molecule is basically the same. The idea is basically is interesting because we wanted to see also the effect of this kind of bulky group in the switching efficiency itself. Yeah. Now again, we do atomic force microscopy, so that I'm not showing here. But here you can see the scanning tunneling microscopy image, and by using a little bit of averaging, you can get the details, and then you can also use some kind of a fit of the molecule. And there also it turns out to be that due to the fact that you have this carboxylic functional group, the molecules are again forming a dimer, as you would see here. As you can see here following, the two molecules are forming a dimer, and the dimers are basically just aligning each other and then forming a kind of dimer row, and then they self-assemble nicely. So the interesting thing is that both the molecule that we have studied, or we have studied even other molecules too, so they form nice and smooth film without much debris or kind of defects on the surface. So that's very important, because if you want to really make use of them, you want to basically have a high quality film. So by fortunately, our methodology that we use for preparing the films are seemingly working very well, and we can make a large area quality film. Now what we do is the same exercise. We have done again the IV characteristics, or the potential ramp on single molecules. So please keep that in mind always, that we are doing it on a single molecule, and these are actually the output of many IV characteristics done on many single molecules. So that's what it is. Yeah. Now here also you see clearly that there are step-like telegraphic type of noise, and you can actually zoom into that. You see it goes up, it comes down to the same state, it goes up, come back, and so on. So that basically meaning that this is again the switching of molecule between the two different states, which is the trans and the cis state of the molecule. Well, we also see that the offset in this particular case also is seemingly like in the order of 0.9, about 1 electron volt. And that turns out to be also that this molecule is also having a charge induced switching. So that means the charge is very important for the molecule from one state to another state. Now we thought, okay, let's try to understand this a little bit more carefully. So then what we also did, we have actually just taken the same statistic that we have done for the switching, and then we have now converted the count or the number of times the switching happens to something known as efficiency. Because if you would basically divide the number of times you have done the experiment and the number of times you observe the switching, it is something equivalent to an efficiency of the switching, right? Then we convert that into efficiency. So now you can basically compare the two different molecules, and what we clearly find is that the PYABA molecule, that means the azobenzene molecule with this extra bulky group, seemingly is much more efficient, and particularly at the positive side. That is meaning that when you electron-induced switching of the PYABA molecule is seemingly much more efficient than that of the PABA molecule. That means a normal azobenzene with a COH group, and this is actually the azobenzene with a bulky group, is seemingly much more efficient in switching induced by electrons. But on the negative side, that means actually the switching induced by Hall, they seemingly the same. Yeah, so both are about 0.15, and here is also 0.15. So that means their efficiency is the same. But when you inject the electron and you do the switching induced by electron, they seems to be, the PYABA seems to be much more efficient. Now then we also asked a question ourselves that can we understand it a little bit further? So we have done a very simple calculation. Of course, our theoreticians are doing this calculation on surface so that our understanding is more clear. What we have done is basically we took a neutral molecule and we have ramped a so-called potential energy scan from the trans state to the cis state. So this first minima represent the trans state and this minima represent the cis state. Now this is a neutral molecule, and these are actually the so-called potential energy diagram of the negatively charged and positively charged molecule. Now you clearly see something very striking, that as soon as you have a charge in the molecule, the barrier for switching from trans to cis, that is basically this height, is drastically reducing. It is in the order of about 1.5 electron volt reduction in the barrier for switching from the trans state to the cis state, and vice versa, because you can also now switch from the cis state to trans state also much more efficiently than in this case. This is quite striking. We also have a look at the other molecule, the molecule with a bulky group, and there also you see this a clear similar phenomena, that the neutral molecule and the charged molecule, for the charged molecule, the barrier for switching is seemingly very, very low compared to the that of a neutral molecule. Now what you also see is that effectively the barrier for switching of the PYABA molecule is effectively smaller than that of the PABA molecule. And that is also something we see in our experiment, because I've already showed you that you basically see that the one of the switching efficiency of the PYABA molecule is much higher compared to that of a PABA molecule. So that is also clearly depicted in this kind of a calculation. Of course, these calculations are not the final answer to us. Our theoreticians, as I told you, is currently working on doing this calculation also on the surface, so that the effect of surface is also taken into account. But nonetheless, it is graphite, so therefore we do not expect a strong electronic structural influence between the molecule and the graphite, because graphite is kind of an inert surface. Yeah, so that is the point. Now let me switch to the next topic. So that's the other topic that we are currently dealing with, about 2D molecular materials. So already today, the talk by Professor Samir, we have already heard the applicability of 2D materials. In the same direction, what we are also proposing or pushing is to use molecules as a kind of 2D materials, yeah, to generate 2D materials based on molecule. And you will also see why and how that becomes significant. Of course, this is not as robust currently as the technology what Dr. Samir already discussed. This is actually in a developing stage, but in the future one is hoping that we can also have two-dimensional material purely based on molecule, because of the choice of molecule that we have, or the fundamental building blocks that you would require to make this kind of material. So let me just show you. Let me also just check the time. Yeah, all right. How much time left for my talk?
5 minutes, sir.
You're at 3:39, maybe about 2 minutes, 3 minutes, so that we have some questions.
Okay, good. So let me just quickly go through this. So the 2D materials are kind of working by connecting molecules together using covalent and also using metal coordinated network. So the reason is very simple, so that in a normal self-assembly, the intermolecular electronic coupling is very weak. So if you want to make practical applications of two-dimensional materials based on molecule, what we require is basically a true electronic coupling, and that is where the so-called strong electronic coupling like aromatic coupling and metal organic coupling is required. And that is what we try to pursue in our group. So let me show you quickly what we do. So we take the precursor molecules and let them react on a surface. So this is very important. When we do that reaction on the surface, we can in fact create this kind of material, which is kind of a graphene equivalent type of material, because what we do eventually find is kind of a truly electronic or truly aromatic type of ring that you generate. Yeah, it is nothing but a kind of modified graphene. So this is how you prepare them. So you can basically deposit the molecules on the surface. So that's very important. And then you do the chemistry on the surface. And if you take care of the chemistry properly by taking the ratio of the molecules and so on clearly, then what you do is you can clearly make uniform, nice, smooth film. So what you're seeing is an AFM topograph. But if you using a scanning tunneling microscopy, we can clearly zoom into that. And then what we find is actually this nice hexagonal comb structure, which is nothing but the molecular, due to the honeycomb structure that is formed between the two different type of precursor molecules. So what we clearly make here is kind of a graphene equivalent material, which is having the true pi conjugated electronic structure around the honeycomb. Now, to understand it further, we have actually performed a scanning tunneling spectroscopy. And in the scanning tunneling spectroscopy, what we find that we can basically find the band gap, and it is about 1.8 electron volt. And also using theoretical calculation, you can kind of compare whether this is true, and that is indeed true. And what we also find interesting is actually the frontier orbitals of these molecules are truly spread across the network. This is quite important because when it comes to the application or transport of electrons or hole across the 2D material, one need to have actually the electron density spread uniformly across the molecular framework. So we are currently working with several different type of molecules, because depending on the precursor molecules that you take here, for example, I have an amine molecule having one extra nitrogen here, or 3 nitrogen, 2 nitrogen. And if you now make a mixture of these two, you can of course make a COF. But now interesting thing, what you find eventually is that the COF that you make, you have ideally added more and more nitrogen atom within the COF. So this is something not possible by external doping in graphene or 2D type of material. This is truly possible only with organic molecules, because we can choose the precursor molecules. And what we have found experimentally and also theoretically, I have only theoretical calculations here. What we find is that depending on the number of nitrogen atoms that you have in the network, you have a clear change in the conduction band minima and the valence band maxima, or effectively the band gap is something that you can nicely tune if you have different type of nitrogen doping within the molecular network. And so we are also currently working on different set of molecules to come up with the possible ways in tuning the electronic structure of these molecules. So now I think I will skip this part where what I would like to only show you is that if you use kind of metal coordination, you can also connect molecules together. And this metal coordination is truly important when you want to actually just tune the band gap. So I'm not going into the details. What I'm only showing you here is this is actually a pure molecular self-assembly. But as soon as you dope the self-assembly with different type of metal here, palladium and zinc, what you clearly find is that you can bring down the band gap to a very strong extent. Yeah, so particularly in the case of palladium, we find that we can reduce the band gap by about 1 electron volt compared to the pure molecule that you use. So that's something what I was telling you in the beginning, that using metal coordination and also using organic, the aromatic linkages, you can clearly tune the band gap of material. So we are currently working on developing different type of materials using aromatic linkage and metal linkage in order to tune the band gap. And then I have also showed you that we can basically switch single molecules, and we can also try to understand the single molecular switching and even the efficiency of single molecule switching at a molecular level. And these are the two major activities that we do in currently in IIT Kanpur, and we have more examples, and then we are currently progressing in a nice directions. Well, I would also like to acknowledge the people who are involved in this work. Also, my theoretician Jain Singh and his group, and also I have several collaborators within the campus and also like abroad who also supply molecules and things like that. And these are the people who do really the work. So my students, and then the money is coming from basically DST and from MIT. And finally, I also thank you very much for your kind attention and also the opportunity to present what we do at IIT Kanpur. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Another session is open for discussion.
Gopal, are you looking at substrate effects?
Pardon me, would you please repeat the question?
Are you looking at substrate effects? What is?
Well, yes and no. No, for a reason that at the moment, all the experiments are currently done at ambient conditions. Their graphite is seemingly a very good substrate to work with. Therefore, most of the experiments that I have shown you is done at graphite. But currently, we are also extending these molecules, particularly the 2D materials, onto substrate like mica and gold and so on, because like Dr. Samir also showed in his device fabrication, we need like insulating substrate at the end if you want to make devices. So we're truly looking into that. So hopefully in the future, we will also be able to deposit them on insulating substrate, for example.
One related direction is that just like molecules now, these nanometer size metal cluster systems, which are molecules, they are becoming very interesting and therefore organize very well. And there is a whole lot of science that one can do at this molecule level.
Yeah, no, particularly you're right. I think that metal clusters are very much excited for the spintronic set of people, and they are quite doing a lot of interesting aspect actually. Unfortunately, with our setup, we are unable to look at the magnetic change. So that is the reason why we are not working on that. But we can truly measure the electronic changes. Well, if electronic changes in a metal cluster would also mean that you modify the magnetic properties as well. But we are currently unable to look at that. Yeah. But that's a future prospect.
Question?
Yeah. Hey, Gopa, very nice, very interesting.
Hi, Samir. Hi, nice to see you.
Good to see. So, you know, it's not just insulating materials, but also if they're conducting materials, you could even think of some transparent conductors.
Yeah.
Okay, but what I wanted to ask was these 2D materials that you're making, they look more like graphene.
Correct.
Is it possible to tune the size of these cavities?
Yes, very much.
And what is the range that you can tune?
Well, of course, I'll just quickly show you a slide here. If I have it very quick. So you can see here in this slide, what I am having is just like, the difference in the precursor. So depending on the precursor molecule that you use, you clearly can vary the diameter to a larger extent. So we also do see that as soon as you change the diameter, that's actually the example I showed you with the nitrogen doping, we also can tune the band gap clearly. So it depends all on the molecule that you choose. Yeah.
How much is the band gap tunable with actually?
So here we could get about 0.5 electron volt in these two structures. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, sir. Pradeep, sir.
Shall we move on?
Okay, sir. Gopakumar sir discussed molecular switches based on azobensin and its derivatives. and this preparation of ultra-thin film of absorbance derivatives. Then its efficiency of switching,